The 2026 regulations have a problem. This ain't theory. This ain't rumor. This ain't some paddock conspiracy for folks who love drama. It's text. Cold hard letters, signed off, published. And when the text fails, when a comma's in the wrong spot, or when a definition leaves room for two different reads, who's in charge isn't the FIA. It's whoever's got the sharpest lawyer, the most aggressive legal team, and the guts to turn one sketchy line into 3/10 per lap. They're selling 2026 as the efficiency era. More powerful hybrid engines, less fuel, more electricity, sustainability, future, progress. Pretty words for a PowerPoint deck. But there's a loophole in these regulations, a flaw that never got fixed. And this flaw can turn efficiency into a political weapon, can turn innovation into an unfair advantage, can turn the world's most expensive championship into a game of legal interpretation, where the winner isn't necessarily whoever runs fastest. Today, I'm gonna show you where this mistake lives, why it exists, who's gonna profit from the chaos it's about to create, and why the FIA is in silent panic mode. Because 2026 isn't just new engines. It's the FIA's desperate attempt to control Formula One without admitting publicly that they lost control a long time ago. And the worst enemy of control is a regulation with one ambiguous line. Just one line. If you're into the behind-the-scenes stuff, if you want to understand the politics that go down away from the cameras, if you're not satisfied with the official story and want to know what's really written between the lines of Formula One is cheeky with me, we don't react to the sport here. We decode the power. Let's start with the obvious. What was the FIA trying to avoid with the 2026 regulations? The official answer's easy. Reduce dependence on combustion engines. Increase electrical unit power. Make the sport more sustainable, more relevant, more aligned with the future of the automotive industry. All true, all necessary. But behind this pretty narrative, there's a much more real. The FIA is scared to death of getting the balance wrong. When you change the foundation of the game, when you rewrite the fundamental rules of what makes an F1 car fast, you risk creating a new monopoly. One team dominating not because they're better, but because they discovered something nobody else saw. And if that happens in 2026, if one team comes out with half a second advantage because of a technical interpretation nobody else thought of, the championship dies, viewership drops, sponsors complain, and the FIA becomes a prisoner of decisions they made years ago, locked in a room, thinking they'd covered every angle. Except, trying to close one door, they left a window wide open. And this window has a name, has an address, has an article and paragraph in the technical regulations. Now stay with me, because this is where it gets interesting. When you read an FIA regulation, you're not reading an instruction manual. You're reading a legal battlefield where every word was negotiated between manufacturers, teams, lawyers, and politicians. Every in there has history. Every exception hides an interest. And the mistake I'm telling you about isn't a typo. It's an architectural failure. It's an ambiguous definition, a conflict between articles, a poorly chosen metric, or an exception that can be interpreted so broadly that it destroys the rest of the rule. Let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine a contract that says you can use the company credit card for any work-related expense. Seems clear, right? But then, 3 paragraphs later, there's a line that says to accept on weekends, unless in cases of operational emergency. Now tell me, what's an operational emergency? Who defines it? If you buy lunch on Saturday because you were finishing a presentation, is that an emergency? And if your boss says no? But legal says the definition of operational emergency is open to contextual interpretation. Where does the war live? In what's a weekend? In what's an emergency? or in what's operational. In Formula One, this kind of loophole isn't a detail. It's the whole game. And when there's a loophole, the question isn't who's going to use it. The question is, who's going to use it first, most aggressively, and with enough documentation to defend their interpretation to the bitter end. Now let's go backstage. How does a team turn an ambiguous line into a championship advantage? The process is surgical. First, the team identifies the loophole. Not at the regulation launch, but months before, when the text is still being discussed in technical meetings. Engineers study it, lawyers map it out, and someone raises their hand and says, "Guys, this paragraph here, it doesn't close. It leaves space." Second step, the team develops an entire concept based on this interpretation. This isn't improv. It's strategy. They invest millions, test in simulators, build prototypes, and when the car hits the track, it's fast. Crazy fast. Too fast. Then comes step 3. The rival team protests. Not officially. Not yet. First, it's a discreet comment in an FIA meeting. Then it's a technical question sent via email. Then it's a veiled threat in a press conference. And finally, it's a formal protest, documents on the table, lawyers on both sides, and the FIA in the middle, trying to decide who's right without blowing up the championship. And this is where politics devours the technical stuff. Because the FIA can't just say, "You guys are wrong. Change the car." If they do that, the team that invested millions will sue, will scream publicly that they were screwed over, will threaten to leave the sport. But if the FIA does nothing, the other teams will cry favoritism. Will say the regulations are a joke, will threaten to leave the sport. So the FIA does what they always do, releases a technical clarification, a document, a 3-page paper saying that, actually, the correct interpretation was always this one here, and that any other reading would be inconsistent with the spirit of the regulations. But here's the trick. Is a clarification a correction? Or is it a change? If the FIA is clarifying, it means the original text was clear and someone was wrong. But if the FIA is changing the interpretation, it means the original text was flawed and someone was right until yesterday. In Formula One, the fastest car sometimes isn't the one with more downforce or more power. It's the one that interprets the regulations best. And this kind of mistake, this kind of war, doesn't end on track. It ends in closed rooms, with documents on tables, with protest threats, with phone calls to Geneva, with political pressure, with manufacturers calling the FIA president saying they invested €1 billion and won't accept being screwed by a mid-championship rule change. Now let me explain why the FIA's panic is real. Why now? In 2026, this kind of mistake can be catastrophic because 2026 isn't an incremental change. It's not adjusting floor size or changing diffuser height. It's the biggest technical reset in years. Manufacturers invested billions. Honda came back. Audi came in. Ford put their name on an engine again. These guys didn't invest money to show up in 2026 and find out the FIA's gonna change interpretation of a fundamental rule mid-season. And here's the FIA's dilemma. The real dilemma. What keeps whoever's in charge up at night? If they fix the mistake early, before 2026 starts, they publicly admit they messed up, that they published flawed regulations, that they didn't cover every angle, and that damages credibility, breeds mistrust, makes everyone review the entire text looking for other loopholes. But if they fix it late, after someone's already invested heavy in one interpretation, they change the championship by decree. They pick winners and losers not based on performance, but based on administrative decision. And that's worse. Way worse. And if they don't fix it, if they leave the loophole open, Hope nobody abuses it. Pray that common sense prevails. Then you risk one team dominating, so absolutely that the sport gets boring. Viewership drops, and everyone asks, how did the FIA let this happen? This is the FIS lose-lose-lose. There's no good exit. There's a less bad exit, and they know it. So here's my take. APX's thesis on what's really gonna go down in 2026. The regulations won't be decided just by engineers. They'll be decided by politics. By whoever can turn confusion into policy. By whoever has more influence in technical meetings. By whoever knows how to use the media to create narrative. By whoever has the most aggressive lawyer and the compliance department most prepared for legal warfare. I'll tell you more. There's gonna be clarifications that are really corrections. The FIA is gonna drop documents saying they're just clarifying what was always obvious. But everyone in the paddock will know it's a course correction. There's gonna be teams screaming injustice, but only after they realize they're behind. Because nobody complains when they're winning. And there's gonna be someone, some team, some manufacturer, who's gonna come out of this looking like a victim, doing interviews saying they got screwed, even though they profited for months from aggressive interpretation before the FIA stepped in. The FIA isn't scared of the mistake. They're scared of what the mistake proves. That control is an illusion when billions of euros are at stake. That regulations are politics in writing. That Formula One isn't just engineering, it's power. So now, I'm asking you, and I want you to think carefully before answering. I want you to picture the scenario. If this loophole really exists, if one team really finds the window the FIA left open, do you think the FIA's gonna close the door in time? Or are they gonna wait for someone to walk through, win 3 races, build a 40-point championship lead, and then drop a technical clarification pretending it was always obvious what was allowed and what wasn't? Because in 2026, whoever wins might not be whoever built the best engine. It might be whoever read the paragraph best. And if you think that's crazy, if you think I'm exaggerating, I invite you to look at the history. 2009, double diffuser. 2021, flexible wing. 2022, porpoising and mid-season regulation changes. Formula One isn't racing, it's interpretation. And whoever interprets best, whoever plays the political game most intelligently, whoever turns mistakes into opportunities, that's the real champion. Not the fastest, the smartest.